Hello and welcome back to the podcast. So I'm joined by Curt Meinhold here, who's it's interesting because we've been friends for what, 5 or 6 years at this point?
At least, yeah. I met you pre-COVID, so might
Right.
be 6 or 7 now.
Which is like a before time. It's so crazy how things have shifted.
Yeah.
I mean, specifically within AI, but also like all the world events that have conspired since then.
I think the sense of time shifted.
Yeah.
So again, when you and I first met, that feels like it was a very long time
Like a
ago.
decade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
So
but because what was cool was, but even during that time, you were working on Yene, right?
yeah, it would have been probably the end stage of Yene, but yeah, I was running Yene at that point.
And I guess, can you tell us a little bit about like what was Yene?
It's an interesting story. I'll try not to ramble on too much, but Yene started out actually as a app to help real estate agents, and Yene, Yanay, was a palindrome, and I used to tell people that, and they'd say, "I don't know what that word is," and there was a lot of red flags at the beginning that I didn't pick up on, but it was literally yay and nay,
Yeah.
so jammed together. And I had some friends in real estate that were agents, and they would say, I keep getting customers or clients, and they say, we want houses. The most important thing is a big bedroom. We want the big, and he said, I take them to 6 houses, and all they complain about is the kitchen. So
Yeah.
he said, I got to stop and reset and then go back and say, what do you really want? So I said, what if we built an app and they just took pictures and said, I like this, I don't like this. And then that information could go to the agent so they could turn them on. And they loved it. We actually built it, had a good number of users using it, but I was getting to the end of like my runway. I couldn't build it and support myself forever. So found some investors who were very helpful. But at the time, I really thought I knew more than I did. I thought I could do more than I did as a solo founder. And they really wanted to try to find something bigger. This is back 2016, 17. So the real estate market was big, but not like what it is today.
Yeah.
So I shifted to small businesses, and I found IBM's Bluemix platform at the time, which was their machine learning platform. It was terrible, but it was one of the first ones. Nothing worked on it. Nothing worked right. And eventually I moved everything over to Google Cloud at the time. And we were using their NLP to take in the feedback from users, as well as going out, finding news stories, things like that. And what we did was created a NLP score that got...
What is NLP?
Oh, apologies. This is one of the questions that used to get asked all the time. That was a red flag. Everybody said, I don't know what, natural
When you say
language.
NLP, I think of neuro linguistic programming.
Natural language processing. So
Okay, I gotcha.
the other thing was sentiment analysis. And when I would say sentiment analysis to people back then, everybody would say, I don't know what that is.
Okay, I do know what sentiment analysis
Yeah.
is.
So basically what we were doing was finding out what people liked or didn't like about small businesses. We would generate a daily score based on the inputs using NLP. And then that could be tracked over time. So, if you had a score of 80 and then it dropped to 72 overnight, you knew there was some problem, go check it out. Small businesses generally said, this is cool, but I don't know what to do with the information. So they wanted us to also tell them what to do with the information. Where we ended up falling in is with municipalities. So police stations, city arts programs, people that actually wanted feedback from users. So we did that and had some good customers, some in Greensboro, some up north. And, but I was burning myself out. And 2018 rolled around. My mother-in-law, who lives in England, had some health issues. My wife was over there for 4 or 5 months. And eventually, I had 3 years where I was able to pay our development team, but not myself.
Oh, wow.
And so I eventually just had to shut it down. And so I did that in 2019. So that was kind of the story of Yene. I learned a lot during that process, not only as far as my own skills, what I'm good at, what I'm not, but as well as it was sort of my introduction to machine learning at that point.
Very cool. Yeah, because we reconnected because you're actually in what is the name of the chamber program that you're in?
So it's Launch Lab, and I believe this is Growth.
Okay.
There's like a launch lab weekend or something like that, which is just the short one. This is growth, where you're supposed to work towards scale.
Gotcha.
Then there might even be another version, but I'm not sure. So
Yeah, because I ran into you at the co-working space.
Yeah.
It used to be HQ Greensboro back, when we were first hanging out. But now it's, I think it's Thrive, or is it Transform?
HQ, and then it was Transform, and now it's Thrive.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I ran into you there, and I was like, hey, I'm kind of moving into the AI space.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been doing AI. So how long have you been actually kind of in that space? Which I guess is kind of a tricky question to answer, because back in 2016, they weren't calling it AI. They were calling it machine learning, right?
Well, machine learning, somebody will probably write a comment saying I'm an idiot, but machine learning is really the umbrella term. AI falls under it. There's a whole bunch of things that fall under machine learning.
Okay.
Artificial intelligence would fall under machine learning. So AI, as far as what we think of now, like the large language models like ChatGPT, things like that. I mean, I don't want to say new. This stuff's been being worked on in the background for more than a decade now.
Right.
But as far as the consumer interfaces, I don't know, when did ChatGPT launch? 5 years ago? 4 years ago? I don't remember the date. So there's that aspect of it. So for me, as far as like machine learning, I've been working with it directly for 7 or 8 years now. And AI, as far as using LLMs and we're in the process of building a small language model. And the difference between the large language and the small language model is, with the small language model, we can actually build it locally, keep our customers' data.
Like secure. So it's not in the
keep
cloud.
it so it's not going out to other companies. And we can also keep the work that we're doing proprietary and in-house. So,
Gotcha.
but we are leveraging LLMs right now. I spent the end of last year really testing all of the LLMs. ChatGPT, of course, was very much the one with all the attention on it. And I started there, but, moved into Microsoft space a bit. I tried out, is it DeepSeek?
The Chinese version? Yeah.
When that came out, like all the hype around that, I was like, okay. So I tested it out and I was like, this thing sucks. I don't understand. Now, what it is good for is that it's cheap.
Yeah.
And you can run it locally. So if you're looking for a cheap solution, that's what people are using as a starting point. But, I went through all of them. And what I came back to is what I found in 2016 is my belief is, from the consumer side, I think that Google's still ahead of everybody else. And the way they've built their ecosystem now, if you use something like Firebase Studio, they have an online IDE that's completely embedded with all of their infrastructure, like databases and things like that. And they've got Gemini built into that. And that's really powerful now. What Google doesn't have, and they've never had, is good marketing. They really don't know how to market, which is strange for me for everything that they've got. But I think it was kind of started by these academics, and maybe they still hang on to that. But they are behind on everything.
Well, they're so big. Well, I mean, if you think about the internet, Google is like the cornerstone.
Yeah.
Like, what was it? It was some Judd Apatow movie where they first used "Go Google It."
Oh, yeah.
And that was like back in like, I don't know.
Well,
'09.
my personal email address is something people are always shocked. They're always shocked to
AOL?
like, no, it's Gmail. So people are always like, how did you get that email address? And it's like, because the first day Gmail came out, I got a Gmail address. And so I've been in the Google ecosystem for a long time.
Yeah.
But when I say they suck at marketing, like, everything is always in beta. They've had products that I've really liked and was leveraging, using daily. And then out of the blue, they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna get rid of that product in 3 months, and we're gonna replace it with this other product that's much crappier than the one you're using.
Interesting.
They do stuff like that all the time. So search, which they're losing ground in search now. Advertising, of course, is still their big thing. YouTube, of course, is huge. But anyway, I still think from a technology standpoint, Google's ahead. And so we're using that for Lily List.
Okay.
And I just decided I don't want to have 15 different parts of a solution to launch. I want to have something simple where everything lives. So yeah, we're using Google infrastructure and the LLM right now.
Well, it's funny because actually Google just launched their like Vids app, which is AI generated video.
Oh, okay.
And the way I found out about it was literally an email that was like, hey, in 2 weeks, you're going to have access to this. But it was like, I didn't see it on social media. I didn't see it. Like, there was no advertising. I mean, I could have missed that email, and then it just would have.
And they don't seem to care. So
that's interesting.
You know, that's probably part of their labs. So in labs, you know, they've had tools in there, like they were the first one. Well, I don't know if they're first, but they were early to like music generation. Their image generation has always been pretty good. And then, as you said, video, I haven't tried that, but all of these things have existed for a long time and nobody knows about them. So
interesting. Yeah. Well, so I've actually, the last 2 or 3 YouTube videos I've put out, I've on purpose used their platform just to see. And it's not like, I don't know, it's not an advanced like DaVinci editing software, but I mean, it's pretty incredible that you can take one of your Google Docs, feed it into that, and then it's going to take that as a script.
Yeah.
And then animate it, have scene transitions, throw in text over like a video background. Like it's pretty incredible as far as like kind of the corporate training space goes. Like I could see it being like an actual tangible application.
Yeah. A friend and I have been actually playing with this stuff. So again, all these platforms have their deep research model. Again, I think that Google's is ahead of the other ones, but something like Notebook LM, which is amazing. And so, you know, we've done things like, okay, I want you to deep research, go out, find all of the bands that are playing in the month of May at Cat's Cradle in Chapel Hill, right? Go to the calendar, pull out all the bands, the dates, everything else. Go look up those bands online, find out what genre they are, get a bio of them, things like that. And deep research will go out and pull all of that back. You can then take that and you can generate a script using Gemini, take all of this information, generate a script, then take that and drop it into Notebook LM and create a podcast that says, here's what's on at Cat's Cradle this month. And on this date, we've got these bands and they play this type of music and all that. And that stuff is really powerful. So you and I have had a lot of conversations, and you know, I've lived through a bunch of hype cycles. I've never seen a hype cycle as big as AI.
It does feel different, right? Because I kind of rode the analytics hype cycle.
Yeah.
Like back in 2016, 2017, big data was like the talk of the town.
Well, big data in the late 90s is what we were talking about when I worked at Internet Startup. So big data has been around a long time.
And so it just kind of, it's almost like the high school kids that are wearing like bell bottoms. It's like fashion. It's cyclical. Which is
I think it was just getting better because back in the 90s, right, we had all this data, but you had to manually figure out, okay, how are we going to go and do it? Then these tools started coming out when you really got into it and you were doing, BI stuff and Tableau. Yeah. So, those tools got really powerful. And I think it's the same with AI. I think that the difference is that there is the opportunity here for AI to impact, big data. Yeah, you're going to impact like whatever the analytics side on the back end or something. AI can possibly impact many areas of society and work and things like that. So the opportunity is huge. But in my experience, I think that the megaphone's so much bigger now. There's so much more money that's been pumped into it. Also, we've been doing AI now 5 years on the consumer side. None of these companies have figured out how to make money with it yet. So there's a big push there. I have friends that are in giant companies in like the financial side. They've invested hundreds of millions of dollars trying to be able to cut costs and leverage this. And they don't really have anything that works right now, not consistently.
Well, it's funny. I found myself this morning, actually. This guy I grew up with got a new job as like head of development at some AI. Like it's a word.ai.
Yeah.
And then I found myself being like, why don't I trust this? So I went and was like, whatever company it is, .ai, scam, or like Trustpilot. And it's, the reviews were split. It was like, I think their average score on Trustpilot was like a 2.6.
Yeah.
So like some people it did a really good job with, but the other kind of segment of their user base was just completely like it didn't work. It's all hype, it's all sizzle, no meat. And there does seem to be kind of this snake oil salesman type archetype that seems to be attracted to AI and also crypto too, or like
it's new. That's you always have it. So there's always the people when something's new. Again, we've seen this, and I always hate it because I think I can come across as like a non-believer, a non-supporter. I know AI right now, I've got friends in marketing and things where it is impacting those jobs. It is replacing some people in those fields. So it's not that I'm a non-believer or that I don't support AI. We use AI right now in LilyList for some things, but I always feel the need to push back against the massive hype that exists. To try and bring a little bit of reason into it. And so, I was thinking, I just had a conversation with a friend of mine about back in the days, we're talking mid-90s.
Yeah.
There was jobs for HTML expert. Like that was your job because nobody knew how to do HTML. So if you knew how to do it, then you get a job. And now you're not going to, nobody gives a crap. It's like, DeepSeek's going to write the HTML, write crappy HTML, but it'll write the HTML. And so now you've got front end designers and they're expected to know the code and the design and all this sort of stuff. And so you go through these cycles and when something's new, I just saw a prompt engineer, all those jobs are going away. And it's like, so it was never really a real job.
Wait, prompt engineer was a job title?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's interesting.
For the last couple of years, that company spent a lot hiring prompt engineers.
So basically the job would be like, just write out the natural language.
You know how to write a prompt better than someone else. Yeah.
Yeah. Just give more context or that's
what it was. I believe is I was never a prompt engineer. I never hired one, but each of these models had their own quirks. And ways that they like to be interacted with or things of that nature. And so there were people, I always say, even with HTML expert, the people that are ahead of the curve, there's opportunity there, whether you're a snake oil salesman or you're an actual tech guy that just picks up things early. So these guys now, the prompt engineers, like it's not like that job went away and now they don't have jobs. They just picked up other skills that include that. And, prompt engineering, as we were talking before we started, like, these things will write the prompt for you now, right? I mean, it's...
I literally did that yesterday. I was like, write me a detailed prompt so I could go into this image generator to have like a very detailed... I use ChatGPT and then I can't remember. I tried like my email address. I signed up for like the free trial of like 6 different of these AI generators.
Yeah.
But okay, I did want to circle back to... There's this concept of we were talking about like the subjective versus objective. Mm-hmm. And this is the criticism I've heard from like, Doge or like the kind of Silicon Valley mindset when it applies to government. Like the whole concept of like move fast and break things doesn't really apply to finance. It doesn't really apply to like, if people are needing your services and it's critical life or death, you don't want to rapidly innovate and break things because then that results in like, people's lives ruined, massive suffering, injury, that kind of stuff. The conversation that we've been having over the last 2 or 3 weeks is why is it so hard to have AI kind of in the accounting or the finance space?
As I get older, just to kind of paint a little context here, like you said, is you don't want to move fast and break things because this is really important. And I think the thing to keep in mind is, I don't want to get too philosophical here, but it's not about right and wrong. It's about what the objective is.
Okay.
So, for instance, what we're seeing in the government right now, move fast, break things, which is, that was like the Facebook motto. That's, I think, where it came from originally. Yes, there's real lives at risk, but if you are someone who's at the top and sees the opportunity that, yes, there's going to be 100,000 people that go through pain right now, but 10 years from now, if we make this change, things are going to be better for millions of people. I think that's kind of a mindset that exists. So I'm more on your side, where I think that you should minimize the immediate pain while working towards a well thought out plan that gets us to where we need to be. But there's people that disagree with that. So I just wanted to throw that out there as kind of some of the reasoning that you
see. I don't even know if I'm taking that side of it. It's just, and it's a thought that I heard, like some criticism of kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
But that is an interesting point. Like one of my favorite podcasts. Have you ever heard of Hardcore History of Dan Carlin?
I've heard of it. I don't know if I've ever.
So he opens up one of these like podcasts about like World War II, and it's like one death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic.
It was a Stalin quote, I believe.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a utilitarian view versus kind of like more of like a leading with your heart type of view on that.
Yeah.
Which I think both are accurate.
I'm wearing an Albert Camus shirt, so I am a fan of philosophy, but I do have a bias toward let's try to minimize impact up front. Now, there's an argument to be had, which I don't disagree with, that we've gone way too far for way too long, kicking the can down the road. And there is something that has to happen that may be a bit startling. But again, I'm not an expert in this. I'm not going to dive deep. To your question about using AI in finance, it can be used in finance. There's certain things it's good at and other things it's not. So I think that AI does a very good job, generally speaking, if things aren't too complex, at finding errors.
Right.
If I'm trying to code something and it's not working and there's an error, I'm not the best coder in the world. Mm-hmm. And so, in the old days, I'd spend 3 hours to figure out, there's this extra stupid bracket here, or there's a semicolon missing or something like that. I can take a block of code and drop it in and say, can you find the error in here? And generally speaking, it does. It does a good job at that. I think on the finance side, it could do that with numbers, spreadsheets. Again, with LilyList, one of the things I've had to be building out are models, right? 2, 3, 4, 5-year models. And
you keep mentioning LilyList? Can you officially introduce it?
I should
have. We talked about Yene, but we didn't get into. We were kind of going chronologically, and then we got because there's so much to talk about.
No, well, let me get through this answer, and then we can talk about that. But because my brain will forget. But so I'm building these models, and the way that the revenue for LilyList works, right? Because it's sort of a SaaS platform, is that we've got a lifetime value, right? So there's some money that comes in immediately. Somebody buys something, that's direct revenue. We get it immediately. That's easy, right?
Right.
20 users, they pay $100 each. You got $2,000. Very simple. But if you have a model like Google or Facebook or part of LilyList will be that over time we're going to have partners and we'll have other people that we work with, and they might pay us a certain amount to connect with our users, or we might introduce users to their software and we'll get paid. So that lifetime value, let's say they're paying 20 up front, but over the course of a year, we're going to get another 80 from each user. And so I need to track every month there's new users coming in.
Right.
And I need to track, okay, this month we're going to get 50% of that, then 20%, then 10, 5, whatever it is. And then I need to track that compounding every month over time. And I recently thought, like, man, this is exactly the sort of thing AI would be great for. And as I said, I'm all in on Google. So I was using Google Sheets and Gemini. And I just thought, I'll take 30 minutes, bang this out. It'll be the fastest business model I ever created. And it just couldn't do it. It just couldn't get it right. It was the formulas were overcomplicated. Instead of using things like row names, it was using these offsets to try and capture things. And so every time there was a total row or a total column. It just couldn't figure it out. So eventually I just said, I'm just going to build it manually. And I did that. You and I talked last week, and you were like, oh, Copilot's built into Excel. And I was like, I use Copilot multiple times a week in Visual Studio Code, but it never crossed my mind to say, hey, let's open Excel and see if it's different. So this weekend I did that, and it was the same.
Interesting.
Now, I had data that already existed, and it's possible that if I go back and build the prompts from the beginning to say it's a blank spreadsheet, here's step 1, step 2, step 3, I'll go back and I'll try that and I'll report back to you. But what I've found and what I generally tell people, again, generally, there's some really powerful platforms out there, things I don't use. There's also some really smart people that are better at this than me, and they can probably do it. But for the average person, I think that the AI tools that we have right now, they're fantastic for proofs of concept. They're fantastic for testing, finding errors, things like that. Anything you're going to run locally, anything that like a basic website that, you're not worried if somebody hacks into it and changes the content or whatever.
I built my website, like my new analytics and AI website. I built it in 30 minutes with Wix.
Yeah. No,
it's just all prompts. And the thing is, like, there's probably 100,000 websites that have the same theme as me, but like,
I built a website for a friend, right? Because Wix is cool, but WordPress is big and slow. And so friends of mine that are non-technical, like I need a website for a law firm, like I can bang it out in 15 minutes using Copilot and even tell it to go find images from Upsplash to use as placeholders, right? And so it works great for that. That's all good. But for me, if you are somebody who's like, I'm going to fire my developer because I have a web or a native app and I don't need a developer now. If there's an issue, I'm just going to use Copilot to go fix it. Like I tell people, it's not going to work. Yeah. When you get to production, it's a whole different ball game. That's not to say there's not gains that can be made using AI on production. There's a bunch of companies I see out there doing things. I just wouldn't believe the marketing materials fully at this point.
That's interesting. Well, so I had a conversation with a representative from Flowcast just like an hour or two ago. So Flowcast is an AI solution that is supposed to help close out the accounting books every month. And part of the reason why we're having this conversation, I guess, to fill in the audience. So there's Charlie is a fractional C-suite executive, CFO, and he's interested in kind of the AI space. So we're kind of all triangulating here of like, he's got the industry knowledge, you've got the technical knowledge, I've got like the time and the energy to like invest in like exploring these apps and also, kind of marketing the ideas and helping build kind of the community around it in Greensboro. But Flowcast is intriguing, but it seems so complex to me. Like there's closing out the books. There's so many moving parts to it that it just doesn't seem feasible right now. But maybe that's because I'm an outsider and, Charlie, who's been doing, that kind of financial work for 30 years would get it, would make sense. It kind of makes me think of, we had Joey Cheek as the first guest on the podcast, and he said something that was really intriguing. He said that the AI is kind of down the value stream right now. It's not the lawyer that's going to get automated. It's the paralegal. It's
a productivity sort of enhancement, right? So it's funny you brought up lawyers because somebody like Charlie, if he uses AI to close out the books and there's an error, that not only can have an impact on the business, that can not only get Charlie fired, but there's legal implications if there's mistakes.
Didn't a lawyer get disbarred?
I was going to say multiple lawyers have been disbarred because they've said, find me cases that related cases to this that back up my argument. And AI found cases or produced them. Those cases weren't real.
Yeah.
And the lawyer didn't do his due diligence and make sure that everything that came up is real. So the way that I see it is like in the financial world or the legal world, you can use these tools. And if they're even 60% correct, as long as you're doing proper due diligence, you're going to have to go back and make some updates and things like that. In that case, I think on impacting the paralegals, I think paralegals would be doing that work. Now you might only need one paralegal instead of two at this point.
Right.
So that, that's kind of how I see it. But yeah, that's the way it works right now. If I was a CFO at a company, I would find what the AI does well, and I would find ways to leverage that for productivity gains. I would also have a watertight process for anything that came out of an AI to ensure that it's correct before it passes on to anybody else.
Well, because I've been doing a lot of research in like the finance and accounting space, and I keep coming up with like, hey, it can do this. Like, for example, classifying expenses.
Mm-hmm.
So you can train an AI to say, here's the last 6 years of purchases I've made,
Yep.
and then here's a classification for it. And then it can say like, oh, well, you bought from company ABC. We see that you bought from them 2 years ago, and it's a marketing expense.
Yep.
So it can build that out. And like, I don't know, I found like 4 or 5 solutions like that. And he keeps saying like, that's accounting, that's not finance. Like, like the finance is more of like the interpretation, kind of the higher level. Maybe it's like the tactical is more accounting and the strategic is more finance.
I mean, the modeling, so.
Because there are a lot of assumptions, like the financial model that you built for Lily List.
In large companies, I've been in positions in large companies where I'm responsible for future quarters, right? So here's where we are today, Q1, or I guess what is it, May? So what are we in Q2 now? So it's like, okay, Q3, we need to decide what are we going to make, right? How much are we going up? Are we going to go down? How many people do we need? That planning is necessary because you've got to know, do we need to hire people? Because it takes time to bring people on to hire. And all of that comes out of these numbers. And none of these numbers are ever 100% correct. No future number, no future model is ever 100% correct.
But like the lawyer, you need to have an argument for why.
You have to back it up.
Yeah.
And
so you're thinking that.
I could see, and like you've got credit cards. Like credit cards have shown you for years, here's where you're spending your money, right?
Yeah.
This much on this much. Like that stuff's been around forever now. Was it using AI or just a big database of what, I don't know, but that's not a huge gain on the AI side. But on the AI side, you could at this point say, here's the last 2 years, the ups and downs, the hiring, everything else. What do you think next quarter is going to be? And that's a jumping off point. I use AI, like if I'm doing a presentation or something of that nature, I will have a prompt that says, here's what I'm doing. Here's who the presentation's for. Here's the focus of it. It's this long. Here's some points that I want to hit. Can you create an outline, right? 10 slide outline. And it will. That's one of the downsides. No, I won't say downsides. It's one of the things you have to keep in mind with AI. Whatever you ask it, it will produce something. Yeah. AI right now, none of these models go, I don't know.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Like, go ask somebody else, somebody smarter than me. None of them do that because they want to please.
Oh, this is a great idea. Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it will.
All black.
And for me, that's a help productivity wise.
Yeah.
Because I know, it's okay. It's not great, but it gets me started and I've got something to edit and I move forward more quickly. So in that sense, that's one of the ways I use it. But I would not be invited back to whoever I was presenting to if I just took whatever AI output and just showed up and read it. It would be terrible. Yeah. So,
all right, Lily List. We should have talked about this at the very beginning. What are you currently working on?
Yeah, so I'll start. Lily List is really a digital platform. And the goal is to capture kind of the essence of people's journeys and output them into these attractive legacy pages, right? And the reasoning for that, personally for me, I grew up kind of, death has always been something close to me. My father committed suicide when I was young. I lost my brother when he was 19. I had a stepbrother die of HIV. friends dying, house fires, gunshots, everything else. So it's been regular. And then most recently, I had a music partner for 25 years, and he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in October 2020. He died in November 2020. And then my father-in-law.
Oh, that was very fast.
Yeah. Well, he was stage 4 when he was diagnosed, so he'd had it a long time, but he was unaware. So,
Okay.
And then my father-in-law, we just lost to dementia last year. And that was a sad decline, where he was extraordinarily intelligent. He had degrees in Princeton and Yale, and he was an engineer and built all these buildings and things. So seeing that slow decline, which then got very quick at the end, one of the things that became clear to me, two things became clear. Lily List originally, Lily, Flowers of Life and Death, and List is a list. My original idea, which was about 5 years old, was people need to plan better. So Lily List would be an actual list of things you should do before you get to end of life. But when I started talking to people about that last year, like, not many people were interested. What I wanted to do was I had this step called an ego step, and that was really capturing stories and things of that nature. And I thought that might lead people to take action. But since I found people were really interested in the storytelling, we focused on that. So right now in the marketplace, there's a lot of good products. Storyworth is one. There's one called Memento that just was on Shark Tank, and one of those guys invested in it. But there's like books that you can buy that people handwrite. Storyworth is you get a prompt and then people have to type out an answer to it. And then Memento, you get a prompt and you take a video. And all of these output to books at the end of the day. And watching somebody actually lose their memories, lose their ability to tell the stories that happened in their life, really made it clear to me that, and the fact that I don't want like 100 books in my house like every year. But those things really made it clear to me that we need something that's really digital, that can be around regardless of what happens, and that captures like the whole essence of people. So not just the memories, not just the stories, but in Lily List, we focus on books and music that were important to you, recipes. We have reflections. I worked for a couple of years at Center for Creative Leadership, and like daily, weekly reflections, things of that nature. And we've got other things we're working on. We do use an AI model. We take all these inputs. We also take other inputs and pull in news stories and things externally. And using AI, we actually output a trailer for each user, like a video trailer. So,
oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's cool.
So that's kind of how we're differentiating ourselves. I've reached out to these book companies because I'm like, hey, we might have users that want to output a book. Can we send data and partner with you guys? And nobody ever got back to me. So I don't know why that is, but yeah, I think that we're much more interested in sort of developing a movement instead of a following. And what I mean by that is, you're still young, and your engineer here is even younger. He's a 21st century man. And I think obviously, I hope people use the list. I hope people like it, and I hope we're successful. But at the end of the day, if the things that we create motivate people to start capturing things sooner, that's really more important to me than Lily List succeeding. So, we want to launch with a free tier. We're out there now pre-registering people, and we want to make it accessible to everyone. And even if people don't use it, they can come in and grab the questions out of there and capture it however they want. So that's kind of where we're at with that. That was a little bit rambling and long-winded, but that's the
We're on a podcast. You don't have to do your 30-second elevator pitch to investors.
Yeah, no. I'm still practicing that piece. So that's I've never been very good at the whole snake oil salesman thing. It's kind of limited my financial success in my life. So,
gotcha. That's really cool. How does the AI kind of work within that? If you don't we can open up the hood, so to speak.
Yeah. I'm working on So I'm part of an AI group that's focused on marketing, which has been really helpful because marketing's never been my strength. So in a way, I can help that group with the technology, and they're very helpful to me with like,
Right.
hey, dummy, here's a way to market
Yeah.
something. So I'm working on a flow chart for it. I'll be happy to share it with you. But basically, we have all of these inputs that go into a database, and some of the inputs need to be converted. For instance, we capture audio data, we need to convert it to text. We can then feed those inputs text into an NLP. It can go through, it can find impactful quotes, it can pull out themes, key themes, things like that. Images, we can actually use image recognition to find themes.
Oh,
So what we can do is actually take all of these different inputs, you know, finding news stories and things. We can take a date of birth and the current year, say, I need you to go out, find the, you know, top news story from this date of birth, right? That's number one. I need
so it
you
kind
to
of adds context to their
I
life.
need you to find the top news story from this year, and then I need you to find 4 in between. And they just become little bits and pieces, right?
Right.
Things that happened during this person's life. So all of that anyway gets converted, captured, processed. And then on the outside, right now, we're just using FFmpeg to actually, we have a template that we built.
I have no idea what that means.
Oh, sorry, FFmpeg. It's like a movie player production
Gotcha.
piece of software. It's open source software. So what we did was created a template. So right now it's just a single template. We're still working on this, right? We don't launch till July. But so we've actually proved the concept. We can take all these pieces. We can actually output something. Right now it's early, but by July it'll be robust and refined. And I think it'll be one of the things that sets us apart. One of the challenges doing this, though, is, I watched all my friends in the financial sector run after AI and start to build their own models and everything. But I tell people now, like, wait 6 months because one of these things is going to come out that already does it. So you're going to hire a team and start building it. And then Microsoft or Google or somebody's going to be like, hey, now we have this thing that does exactly what you're looking for. For us, we found tools that could be helpful. We couldn't find anything that would do exactly what we wanted, and they were expensive.
Gotcha.
So we just decided for now we're going to build it. But I hope that somebody comes out with something that we can just use and make our life easier.
Well, so, right before we started filming, you got to meet Percy.
Yeah.
He was really interesting guy. He's kind of established himself as like the SAT expert in Greensboro. So he's got like 100, 200 students that he's the go-to resource.
Yeah.
So I'm helping him kind of take all of that knowledge, structure it into kind of a series of courses. But I think where AI could potentially come in is like, instead of just, hey, here's the curriculum, you could throw on like an adaptive learning level to that, to where, hey, take this pretest and then we'll, maybe a time range. You got 3 months before you're going to retake the test. Here's a structured learning plan that's like filling in your weaknesses and helping you reinforce your strengths. And we were talking to you, outside the building. I'm like, should we build a vector database and then build an algorithm on top of that? We can like hire developers. And you're like, there's probably an out of the box solution for adaptive AI
for POC or even V1 for me, unless you can identify. It's not, can I do this with a vector database and, train my own model and all these things. I think that you actively have to figure out why you would do it that way. Because to me, the nice part about this SAT is he may be the expert and he may be the best in the world at it. But there's still thousands and thousands of resources out there, human and otherwise, that have data that's freely accessible. And I think that there's an opportunity to actually, now you may want to do something offline, right? You may want to use a local model instead of a model in the cloud because you don't want to give everybody the data. But I think that you can actually take the inputs that you're producing with him and then actually go out and find other similar inputs. You can pull them all together. You could use something like deep research to go out and do that research for you. You don't even have to go look for it on your own. but then pull all of this stuff in there. I don't believe right now for what you're trying to achieve, it's going to require a vector database now. And the reason I say that is because there's all sorts of resources, questions, everything else that already exist. And I think that you can find themes and overarching context that exists, and you can probably process that out using an off-the-shelf model or with minimal training. So that's my take on it, not having actually sat down and mapped this out with you and talked through it. But I would start there because it's so much quicker to get going than to go down the other path. And you'll find quickly, like if you're running into something where you say, I need something specific and I'm not getting it here, then it's like, okay, well now, if we do take this, if we process it, if we put it into a vector database, and then we train a model, do we get something better, different? Otherwise, I just think with SAT content, it may not be necessary out of the gate.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, it's such a cool kind of like little niche to stumble upon, because I met him at the sauna at UNCG's gym, which I've been working out for like, I don't know, 12 years at this point. And just what's so cool about it is that he's got access to these students, so we can like build a cohort of people that he knows. And he also knows their like pre-test scores and their test scores, so that like we can actually quantify the impact of the. I mean, I think starting with the course is good from a kind of operational standpoint from him, because like right now he's just running around like crazy taking these one-on-one SAT tutoring sessions. And then if he could, potentially give them that structure that covers 80%, and then he comes and kind of fills in the gap with 20%. To where also the AI could come in and like just supercharge that entire process.
No, it's definitely, and it's, scalable into other verticals. I mean, SAT is one test. You got LSAT, you've got PMP, you've got, the PMI Association has all sorts of things. If you can prove it out, and where something like that path of building your own model and having your own sort of vector database, if you can prove it out, the real money is in building that solution and then selling it to all these other companies that are using it. That's of course down the road. I like to talk ideas and big ideas, but
we're the same. I mean, that's why it's nice getting coffee with you.
And but I would also say that, if you and I are talking about it, there's other people talking about it. So again, I think the quicker you can move to a POC and prove it out, the better it is, because, it sounds simple. Like I'll just get an AI person and they'll build this out, and
it's not at all.
It's a long process. It's expensive.
Well,
fees are coming down, but they're still not cheap once you get it to scale. So,
well, what I've kind of picked up from our conversations is, I don't think I am ever going to be the AI developer. But I understand business, and I have a pretty wide network. So, just being kind of that advocate or that kind of bridge between people like you that are able to do all the technical stuff and understand. Like you keep throwing these acronyms and I'm like, oh, okay, I have no idea what you're talking about. So if it starts to get egregious and I'm like, all right, I've lost the plot, I don't know where he's going, I'll like check in. But I'm not nearly as technical as you. But the state of the tools is kind of reminding me back in 2017, where they had Tableau, and then getting that in front of business owners, and they were just blown away. Which is kind of funny to think about now. Like it's so standard.
I worked at a company, I think 2018 or 1998 to 2001, called Family Education Network. We built back then what was basically Wix.
Really?
And we had a web page builder platform for educators and people in like, Boy Scouts and things like that. So you could come out and build a web page and have it somewhere, and it was on the platform, and you didn't need to know how to code or anything. And that was only because Wix didn't exist. There was no off-the-shelf tools.
Right.
Before we got purchased by Pearson Education, The people that owned this company at the time went on this like land grab. They bought a bunch of small companies to sort of shore up our own offering. And when they came in, we now had 6 properties, all with their own databases.
Oh, wow.
All with different ways. Some people were like literally using text files as a database.
Wow.
And so one of the projects I worked on back then was what we called the central membership database. And so we had to basically, we couldn't take everything and have it just, come in and go into a single database cleanly. So when somebody would log into one property, we would then get their account converted to JSON and then put it into this third new table, the CMDB table. And so that allowed us, when people came in after that first time, they could come in from any property or they could log into any property, and we had a central place where we could look them up and then let them in. Again, all of this stuff now is like, go to Fire Studio and tell Google that this is what you need, and it'll set up the infrastructure for you and go from there. And so I've seen this massive change, not just in AI, but in many, many areas. I started out in printing. I used to run a printing press back in the early 90s. And I printed books. And I got into computers because the company I was at shut down. I got a job in another company, and they were one of the first companies in the US that had full digital printing presses. And when I saw that, it was a guy with like a white shirt on running it instead of busted knuckles and stuff like me. Everything was on a computer.
Like,
and I just thought, if I don't learn how to use a computer, I'm screwed. So that was my foray into computer land. So
gotcha. All right. So let's close out with this question. Is there anything that people should be paying attention to, or anything that's like kind of new in the AI space that's really exciting to you?
I don't know, man.
It's too broad of a question.
I mean, what people should be paying attention to. I've been, for instance, a backer of open source and distributed networks since the 90s.
So what does that mean?
Like open source software, right? So software that's
I mean, I get the open source part, but when you say distributed network, like you're running the AI on your computer?
Just small localized networks, right? Instead of running all of the internet traffic through some giant pipes that can be controlled and shut down and everything else, having nodes of networks, smaller nodes of networks that connect. And if one node goes offline or something happens, all the other ones still function, right? It's kind of like what the way that something like blockchain functions, right? You've just got all these nodes, and 1, 200 can get corrupted, but from looking at all the other ones that that's corrupted data. So just knock those guys off. The only reason I say that is not because I want people to be thinking about those things, but there's so many big things I think that people should be thinking about right now that I haven't seen people en masse thinking about them in my lifetime, and I'm not sure that they will. So things like privacy, things like regulation.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I saw some statistic. It was crazy. Like the average age of people in the Senate is like 70 years old or something. And like we need people representing us that understand how these technologies work so that they can actually represent us. That gets into the whole thing of like money and politics, in which I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But so I don't want to get into those huge issues, although I do think those are probably the most important. But what people should be looking out for, I'm going to have the same thing. I mean, every time I start my Mac, Microsoft wants to do some update to add more AI to my computer, or Apple wants to add more AI to my computer, and we're so conditioned right now to just go, yes, agree. Like, what do I have to do to get this to go away? And the companies don't let up. So you can say, no, I don't want that. And the next time you restart, it pops up again, and you can't get it to go away. Or if you do get it to go away, it does a operating system update, and then it comes back. I don't know that people can control that. I think most people are just like, look, I got to make money to put food on the table.
Right.
My work says I have to do this, so I have to do it. And so there's a tough thing there. But I would say be aware of those things. Ask questions. Do research. By the way, one of the things AI is good at is you can ask it, why the hell, what are these AI companies doing with my data? It'll probably give you something useful, right? So
Interesting.
be more aware, understand some of the changes that are happening. I had a friend of mine who I really like, but they have some mental health issues, and they were using AI to like talk, and it's OpenAI doesn't care about helping you. That is not why OpenAI exists. OpenAI exists to learn as much about you as possible so that they can make money off of you. And I think that we forget that too often. I think of AI where we are right now with the LLMs is the next step in the industrialization of marketing, right? So we're going from social media to AI. Social media, you had humans connecting with humans, at least, until bots, I guess.
Yeah.
But AI, now you take the human out of it. Now you're just connecting with the computer. You're connecting with the company.
It is a little creepy when I sit down and like really think about, there are people that's I saw a meme. It was like this couple was like walking through the park, and the guy was like whited out, and it was like me hanging out with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Like they're just that's their closest. Because I think, I mean, we were talking about we connected in 2016.
Yeah.
I think the pandemic had a huge isolating effect, and I think a lot of people haven't come back from that.
Yeah.
And if you're in that space, I think AI is probably going to exacerbate that or reinforce it.
That's everything. When social media hit, and I remember social media back in the days of like Friendster and things like that, but when that hit, we always thought about all the good it will do, right? It'll connect us. It'll do all these things. When the internet was out in the 90s, I worked at family education. As somebody who always hated school, I was like, this is going to be so amazing. We're going to have access to all the data in the world and be able to learn on our own. And then, I left that company when I came to work one day, and there was a Imodium AD boat that was going across the homepage because we got some deal, made a lot of money by running this thing on the page. And I was like, that's not why I'm here. That was like industrialization of advertising, right? And social media was the next step, and now AI is going to be that next step. And so being aware of those things, I think, is one thing people can look out for. As far as what I'm looking forward to, I do think there is a lot of opportunity, as I said, as we build out Lily List. When we build our small, I'm going to do a bit of what I was just saying. Hey, don't do that. Try to find the fastest path.
Yeah.
But we are going to build out a small language model because I don't want all this data going up to these third parties, right? There's a lot of language that says we don't look at this, or we won't use this, or whatever it is. But there's also language in there that says we can update this agreement at any time. I don't trust it. So for me, I do think there's going to be a lot of opportunities. You mentioned creepy. One of the things, I had a person I was talking with on the investment side, and they were saying, oh, I've heard about, you're going to have all this data, and there's people that are able to feed in letters and voice and stuff and recreate someone who's passed. Yeah. And my view on that is I find that it's beyond creepy. I think that, I mean it in an animal way. I mean, it is part of our makeup to lose people. It's part of our makeup to end and let other generations come up. To just pretend that you still have some, like I think it's really bad mentally to go down that path. Having said that, if people want that, that's what people will get. We will be collecting data that could be used for that.
Well, someone's going to build it.
As of right now, I'm not planning on doing anything down that line. But again, in business, you go where customers want to go. But again, that's why you need regulation, because in business exists in America anyway to make money, and money's going to drive everything. And so there does need to be some guardrails coming from some representative government if we ever get back to having one. So, and I say that not about the current administration necessarily. I don't think we've had one most of my life. But if we can get back to that, that would be helpful. So,
gotcha. All right. Well, Curt, thank you so much for coming on. This is an awesome conversation.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.